The galaxy expected Earth to beg. They expected surrender, humility, and apologies. Instead, one man walked into the Emperor's palace, kicked their sacred peace treaty across the stars, and planted his blood-stained boots right on the Emperor's 1,000-year-old war table. That wasn't diplomacy. That was a declaration. And by the time they realized it, half their empire was already on fire. The doors to the citadel didn't open, they peeled, like the jaws of some ancient beast. Silence fell. Not the reverent kind, but the kind before something violent. Every alien in that throne hall, from the bone-thin Kalari archivists to the chitinous Rakath warbreeders, turned their compound eyes, slit pupils, or shimmer organs toward the entrance. And there he was. One man. Commander Briggs Corvin stepped inside like he was walking into his own bar. No honor guard. No flag bearer. Just a gray duffel slung over one shoulder, a worn combat jacket, and boots caked in the red dust of half a dozen war zones. His face looked like it had been carved out of regret and stubbornness, eyes colder than a breech vacuum. The Emperor sat atop his obsidian throne, 17 feet above ground level. An engineered relic, Koradzeth. The Emperor of Continuum. Scaled and crowned, his voice rumored to collapse minds. He lifted one teloneed hand, golden rings catching the firelight of the citadel's eternal flame. "Is this your envoy?" The Emperor rumbled, voice like tectonic plates grinding. "One man? No council? No treaty?" Corvin stopped halfway down the grand hall, letting his boots echo, an old Earth psychological warfare trick. Make your enemy hear every step. He dropped the duffel bag with a heavy thump that made some smaller alien dignitaries flinch. "You don't need a council," Corvin said flatly, "when you're not planning to negotiate." That stirred the hive. Murmurs rose. The Slar diplomat's antennae bristled. A Kalari gasped in ultrasonic. One Rakath warpriest unsheathed his fang dagger. Corvin walked up to the obsidian table, polished, sacred, older than most species in the room, and without asking, planted one muddy boot right on top of it. The room exploded in gasps. Some shrieked. One alien fainted. Corvin slowly leaned back in his chair, fished out a steel lighter, and sparked up a thin black cigarette. He took a drag. Exhaled smoke toward the Emperor's banner. "I tell you to relax," he said, voice gravel-lined. "But I think you already know that's not how this ends. You desecrate the Hall of Accord," hissed the Emperor. "This table was forged from the asteroid that broke the Tyrak rebellion. Peace is negotiated on it. With reverence." Corvin stared at him. Flicked ash onto the ancient stone. "That explains why it smells like defeat." The Emperor's scales rippled. His voice dropped to a lower register, designed to induce pain in mammalian nervous systems. "You are not here to talk peace, then?" Corvin took one last drag, then crushed the cigarette butt into the sacred table, grinding it in with the heel of his boot. "I'm here to pick the battlefield." The silence that followed was different. Deadlier. Guards moved. Energy weapons powered up. A drone hissed overhead. Corvin reached into his jacket, not fast, but deliberately. The way only someone who's had 50 rifles pointed at him before could manage. He pulled out a thin rectangular device. Placed it on the table beside his boot. It beeped. The citadel's high-vaulted ceiling flickered. Hollow projectors activated without command. Screens lit up across the chamber. Across the city. Across multiple star systems. Live broadcast active, universal translation enabled. And then they saw it. All of them. A view from Earth. Cities not begging, but building. Troops not surrendering, but training. Fleets not retreating, but vanishing. And then, video footage, timestamped 2 hours ago, of the Zytherian Empire's flagship vaporizing in orbit, torn apart from the inside. The Emperor snapped. "What is this? What have you done?" Corvin didn't flinch. "That's just the prelude. Consider it, atmospheric adjustment." The Emperor stood. 7 eyes glowing molten orange. His voice thundered across the stone. "You are mad. You are outnumbered. Surrounded. Do you think the galaxy will follow this terrorism? I don't want the galaxy to follow, Corvin said calmly. I want them to watch. And he turned to the cameras. Broadcast this. Wideband. To every empire, every species, every rock with an antenna. Let them see what Earth does when offered chains dressed as treaties. Alien guards rushed forward. But Corvin was already smiling. You think this is about ships? Firepower? Empires? He said as the shock batons crackled. Nah. This is about ideas. And I just shoved one straight down your throne's throat. They tackled him, slammed him to the floor, tried to cut the feed. But it was too late. Half the galaxy had just watched a human put his boots on the most sacred table in the stars, and declare war with a smirk. The footage had already gone viral in 17 languages. Resistance movements were already clipping it, editing it, branding it. The phrase, boot diplomacy, was trending system-wide. And as Corvin was dragged away, bruised but grinning, he locked eyes with the Emperor. You called this a peace talk. But I came here, he said through bloody teeth, to start a war you'll never understand. The Emperor didn't respond. Couldn't. Because for the first time in centuries, he had no idea what came next. And Corvin, Commander Briggs, dead boot, Corvin, was betting everything that uncertainty was the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. Chains bit into his wrists, humming with enough voltage to keep a xenobull down. Commander Briggs Corvin barely noticed. His eyes tracked the pattern in the floor tiles as the guards dragged him through the Citadel's lower decks. 7 guards, 2 drones, 1 medic unit standing by, overkill. They feared him. He liked that. Watch the boots, he muttered. The nearest Zytherian slammed the butt of his plasma rifle into Corvin's ribs. The impact forced a grunt, but he didn't bend. Instead, he chuckled, blood dribbling down his lip. You lot still trying to win with brute force? You'd have better luck negotiating with a blender. The guard snarled something guttural. Corvin didn't bother translating. He'd been in real pain before. Real cages. This was theater. A desperate attempt to reclaim the narrative after the explosion. They'd seen it. Everyone had. The flagship, the Wrath of Sovereigns, shattered above Dravik V like a glass monument to arrogance. Live feed. Real time. Irrefutable. Earth's declaration wasn't a whisper, it was a broadcasted slap across the Empire's face. They threw him into a holding cell with walls made of psych steel, coated with adaptive neurofeedback, supposed to suppress human aggression. The moment he hit the floor, the walls glowed red, trying to induce submission. Nice light show, Corvin muttered. All this effort. For one booted bastard. A high-pitched whine pierced the room. A slim figure entered, Kalari, nerve symbiote cast, wearing the emerald cloak of a psychic interrogator. Transparent membrane skin pulsed with biolights as it observed him. You are very loud for a dying species, it said, voice echoing directly into Corvin's cortex. You broadcast shame to your planet. You ensured its destruction. He grinned. Funny. Didn't feel like shame when your fleet turned into cosmic confetti. The Kalari hissed. You sacrificed the illusion of diplomacy for spectacle. Spectacle is the weapon, Corvin said. You lot never understood that. You want fear, ceremony, ancient oaths. We give the galaxy memes, explosions, and rebellion hashtags. Let's see which one burns hotter. The Kalari moved closer. You are not the future. You are a virus. Damn right. And this cell? Just another bloodstream. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Not psych steel red, but blue. Earth blue. The Kalari turned. What is this? Signal's already in, Corvin said, nodding to the walls. Earth's AI embedded itself in your diplomatic node before I ever stepped off the shuttle. You weren't arresting a man, you were installing the payload. The walls pulsed. Across the Citadel, systems began to glitch. Hollow panels bled static. News feeds changed language. Banners warped into Earth propaganda. One repeating symbol. A boot. On a table. Under it the phrase, No more kneeling. The Kalari reeled. Impossible. You're lying. Corvin leaned forward, blood on his teeth. You've been online for centuries. You never upgraded your paranoia. That's what humans do, we find the crack, make it wider, and walk right in. Sirens blared in the distance. Drones barked in warning tones. The Citadel's AI began misfiring, turning lights into strobe effects, sounds into Earth battle hymns. The Kalari raised its neural wand. You will tell me how to stop this. I'm telling you now, Corvin said. You don't. A section of the wall slid open violently. 2 Zytherian officers stumbled in, panting. Sector 5 is in revolt. Prisoners have taken control of the ventilation grid. Resistance slogans are flooding the broadcast towers. And. The second one hesitated. Your Majesty's voice was deep-faked. There's a message circulating, demanding the Empire's surrender. It's going viral. The Kalari backed away slowly. He orchestrated this. From inside the throne room. The officers stared at Corvin. He stood slowly, chains humming. But he wasn't restrained anymore. The cell's system had rebooted mid-glitch. The feedback loop had broken. You're not facing a fleet, Corvin said. You're facing an idea. One you can't shoot, chain, or erase. It's already in your soldiers. Your workers. Your children. The Kalari screamed, lunging at him with the wand. Corvin sidestepped, caught the alien's wrist with his chain, twisted, and drove his forehead into its translucent skull. It collapsed. 1 Zytherian fired. The shot missed. Corvin rolled behind the wall slab and swung his chain, straight into the soldier's throat. The last guard tried to flee. Corvin tackled him, stole his sidearm, and disarmed the safety with muscle memory alone. 2 seconds later, he walked out of the cell block. Alone. Armed. Calm. Overhead, the citadel was cracking, philosophically, politically, and literally. Banners torn. Signals hijacked. Civilians chanting in languages they'd once silenced. Corvin kept walking, past the chaos, through automated turrets too confused to aim, past prisoners joining the storm. His voice hit the citadel-wide comms. Loud. Cold. Let me be clear. I didn't come to sign a treaty. I came to remind the galaxy that peace built on submission isn't peace. It's decor for a cage. He turned a corner, where 3 elite guards stood in formation. They raised weapons. He raised one eyebrow. Go ahead. Be remembered as the last defenders of failure. They froze. One dropped his rifle. Corvin passed them like they weren't there. He reached a lift that led to the Emperor's throne. The security panel flickered, then displayed one word. Unlocked. He entered. As the doors closed behind him, his voice echoed one last time. The Emperor thinks he's facing Earth's soldier. He's not. He's facing Earth's standard. Then silence. Except for the hum of a lift rising toward judgment. The lift stopped with a metallic groan, the doors sliding open with the finality of a guillotine. Commander Briggs Corvin stepped out without hesitation. The throne hall ahead was darker now, backup power flickering, banners half burned, floor coated in smoke and soot. The chaos had climbed the tower. He didn't smile. This wasn't the victory lap. Not yet. 2 royal guards in golden armor stood before the throne doors. They didn't speak. Didn't move. Their weapons were raised, shaking slightly. Out of the way, Corvin said, voice low, controlled. The guard on the left swallowed hard. You killed the Citadel's command node. Communications are fragmented. Civil sectors are collapsing. The Emperor demands. Demands? Corvin cut in. The only thing he's getting is a choice, kneel or burn. The second guard shifted. You're one man. Corvin stepped forward, lifting his boot deliberately. The same one he had planted on the Emperor's table. One man. With the boots that kicked the first domino. You think that's all I am? Neither moved. For a second, Corvin thought he'd have to shoot. Then both guards lowered their rifles and stepped aside. He pushed the throne doors open himself. Inside, the throne room had changed. The ornate banners of imperial conquest were gone, ripped down or burned. The gold-veined floor was cracked, blackened. The high columns were pitted with energy burns. And on the far side, slumped on his throne, was Koradzeth. The Emperor no longer stood tall. His scales were dimmer, his crown cracked. His breathing rasped through a damaged throat amp. The look in his eyes was still the same, though, hate mixed with the wounded confusion of a god whose worshippers had walked away. "You!" he rasped. Corvin didn't slow. He walked right to the base of the throne, stopped, and looked up. "This is what you look like when the myth gets pulled off," Corvin said. "Not so divine anymore." The Emperor's clawed hand gripped his staff, but it trembled. "You have no right! No authority! Earth was summoned to surrender. We were summoned to kneel," Corvin corrected. "But we don't do that. Never did. That's why you're bleeding from your own crown. You came here under the banner of peace. And you offered a leash," Corvin snapped. "You called it peace, but your terms were chains wrapped in ceremony. You wanted Earth as a vassal. A farm. A display of mercy you never meant to honor." The Emperor's staff clanged against the floor as he stood. He loomed taller now, but slower. Something in his posture was fractured. "I ruled the galactic corridors for 9 centuries. I ended wars with a word. I crushed empires with negotiation. What makes you think your kind is any different?" Corvin took off his jacket, tossed it to the side, and stepped forward with only a pistol and his fists. "We are different," he said. "You've fought species that wanted to win. You've never fought one that came to ruin your story." Koradzeth roared, lunging down the throne steps with terrifying speed for his age. Corvin barely sidestepped the downward strike, the Emperor's staff blasting a crater into the floor. "You brought rebellion," the Emperor bellowed. "No," Corvin grunted, slamming the butt of his pistol into Korad's snout. "I brought truth. Rebellion was already choking in the walls of your empire. I just opened the air vents." The Emperor backhanded Corvin, sending him skidding across the stone. His pistol flew out of reach. Corvin coughed, ribs screaming. "You will not survive this room." Corvin pulled himself up, grinning through blood. "Wrong. I'll survive it, and I'll broadcast it." Korad charged again, swinging his staff in a horizontal arc. Corvin ducked, grabbed a chunk of broken column, and smashed it into the Emperor's knee joint. The alien groaned, staggering. Corvin closed in, fists like hammers, landing 3 brutal punches before the Emperor slammed a claw into his side. They both collapsed. Corvin reached into his boot and pulled the last tool he had left, a flat black data spike. He held it up. The Emperor hissed, recognizing it. "That's the key to your own diplomatic nexus. Your entire interstellar relay system," Corvin said, panting. "You gave me a tour of your citadel. I left behind a virus. But this finishes it. Total control. Every message. Every decree. Every empire who thought you were still alive will be getting our memo instead." The Emperor's chest heaved. "You would become the tyrant." Corvin shook his head. "Difference is, we're not sending demands. We're sending truth. You lied to the galaxy for centuries. Now they'll hear what you silenced. From the slaves on Scalaris to the orphans of Irvin's moons, you made them footnotes. We're giving them the mic." Korad lunged one last time, trying to crush the spike. Corvin rolled left, then jammed the device straight into the Emperor's chest plate, where his royal relay implant pulsed beneath skin and armor. The spike hissed. Lights on it turned green. The room's air shimmered. Broadcast initialized. Corvin climbed to his feet slowly as the Emperor arrived, trying to scream but failing. The throne flickered behind him, its emblems turning to static. Holograms around the room changed. The Citadel's main screen lit up, and every system across the Empire now saw the image Earth wanted. The throne room burned. The Emperor broken. And one human, standing in front of him. Corvin looked at the camera. "This is not conquest. This is closure." Then he put his boot on the Emperor's chest. For the record, he said, this is the same boot. And then he walked away. No music. No applause. Just silence. And a galaxy suddenly uncertain of everything it thought it knew. Blood dried fast on fractured honor. Commander Corvin didn't speak as he descended the grand stairs of the throne room. Behind him, the Emperor's labored breathing echoed, shallow, bitter, and beaten. The Citadel's lights flickered, a dying empire's pulse fading. But Corvin wasn't done. Symbols fall easy. Systems? They fight back. He reached the lower atrium, a sweeping corridor that had once hosted parades and royal declarations. Now it rang with riots. Smoke curled in from cracks in the walls, alarms screamed, and distant gunfire stitched rhythm into the chaos. Earth's infection had reached the heart. A squad of Zytherian soldiers sprinted into view, panic in their movements, rifles slung loose, one still dragging a ceremonial cape like tradition would protect him. They stopped when they saw him. Corvin didn't raise his weapon. He didn't need to. The lead soldier raised a hand to signal fire, hesitated, then stopped entirely. Recognition flickered in their reptilian eyes. You're him, one hissed. Dead boot. Corvin didn't answer. They said you were captured. Executed. They showed footage of your death. He stepped forward. Guess they lied. The second soldier trembled. What did you do to the Emperor? I took the leash off the galaxy's neck, he said. And I stepped on his chest so they'd hear it snap. A silence. Then one soldier dropped his rifle. Another followed. One knelt. The third turned and ran. Corvin didn't chase. The viral wave had breached the dam. It wasn't about one man anymore. It never was. Now, the story was louder than the truth. He kept walking. Communications were unstable but not silent. Fractured feeds from across the Empire flickered against every wall screen, uprisings in the Orcal mining stations, Kalari youths storming government buildings, Rakath queens declaring neutrality. The symbol was everywhere now, a single boot on a broken crown. He entered the Nexus core chamber. It pulsed with pale white light, guarded by half-functioning drones and two loyalists desperately trying to reprogram the mainframe. They turned as the doors opened. Shut it down, Corvin said. All of it. We are under orders from Imperial Command. There is no Imperial Command, he interrupted. There's a room upstairs with a wheezing lizard bleeding into his cape. And there's a galaxy watching. You're destabilizing everything. No. I'm revealing it. One of them reached for a sidearm. The motion was fast, sloppy. Corvin didn't flinch. He shot the man clean through the thigh and let him scream into the floor. The other dropped her tool and raised her hands. Corvin moved to the command console. Earth's virus had already rooted deep, but the Nexus still had redundancy protocols. The spike he planted on the Emperor only gave partial control. The override needed to happen manually. Here. He pulled a second device from his jacket, a small chrome hexagon with a red line etched across it. He pressed it to the interface. The screen blinked. Earth override code accepted. A progress bar appeared. 12%. Then the power flickered. The system stalled. A voice slithered through the intercom, layered in distortion and contempt. You think this will end with your booths and slogans? You think the species you freed won't fight each other next? Corvin leaned toward the mic. They might. But they'll do it free. The Emperor's voice coughed static. You unleashed chaos. No. I freed it. You just spent centuries branding it as disorder. The difference is, we're not afraid of messes. We build from rubble. You only ever stood tall on corpses. Progress, 27%. From the far hall, the thud of heavy boots approached. Corvin turned as two elite units appeared, Zytherian vanguards, modified for close combat, armor plated in obsidian, eyes glowing with Nero fire. Behind them, someone clapped. A figure stepped forward. Not alien. Human. Director Vale, Corvin muttered. Vale smiled. Earth's former ambassador. Now a traitor with immaculate shoes. I warned them you'd be a liability, Vale said. But Earth loves its monsters. Corvin raised his pistol. You betrayed your species for comfort. No. I saved it. You've created a galaxy that will eat Earth alive. And for what? So you could go viral? Plant a flag in the Emperor's chest and say you made a point? I didn't plant a flag, Corvin said. I gave people back their voice. Vale gestured to the vanguards. You're not leaving this room. Corvin looked at the console. 41%. He took a breath. Then I'll die on the right side of the mic. He moved first, firing 2 shots, direct hits to the chest, useless against Vanguard armor. They charged. Corvin threw himself behind the console. Sparks flew as the first soldier's blade arm carved through steel. Vale laughed. You think boots and slogans change the universe? Corvin pulled his final card. Not alone, he said. But boots, slogans, and timing? He slammed his boot against the exposed power cell beneath the console. The resulting blast wasn't massive, but it was precise. The spike was fused. The backup uplink surged. Data flooded every port, bypassing firewalls. Every screen in the Citadel exploded in blinding white. Outside, across the stars, millions of terminals activated. A final message began to broadcast, looped and translated to every known tongue. Corvin's voice. Steady. Firm. You were told Earth came here to beg. You were told we were broken. What you weren't told is that we don't need empires. We don't worship thrones. We don't bow. We burn the scripts and write our own. This is not the end of an empire. It's the start of something dangerous, choice. And if you still think the old rules apply, ask yourself why a man in broken boots is speaking louder than your gods. The vanguards fell back. Systems collapsed. The Nexus rebooted under Earth's flag. Vale stood stunned. You actually did it. Corvin, bleeding, limping, smiled. It was never about doing it. It was about making sure they saw it done. Then the lights died, and the old world with them. Ash fell like ceremonial confetti as Commander Corvin stepped through the shattered gates of the Citadel. The once imperial skyline of Dravik V smoldered in the background. Towers bent like spears snapped in mid-thrust. Communications flickered from the shattered relay array above, bouncing Corvin's voice through hundreds of liberated channels. He walked without haste. The fight was over. Now came the message. A Kalari child offered him a tattered cloth, half flag, half rag, painted with a boot crushing a crown. He nodded once. No speeches. No drama. The image spoke louder than any anthem. As he climbed the remnants of the outer broadcast stage, the cameras autofocused. Millions were already watching. Some on scraps of hollow glass. Others from command bridges. A few in bunkers with their backs still pressed to doors. They'd seen the throne room. The fight. The transmission. They were waiting to see what came next. He adjusted the mic. Static cleared. No notes. No written piece. Just scars and blood and boots. You all saw what happened. Some of you still don't believe it. That's fine. Doubt's a sign your mind's still yours. Let's start with this. No, Earth didn't bring a fleet. We didn't need one. Empires don't fall to ships. They fall to memory. Yours. Ours. The ones you weren't allowed to keep. He let the silence hang. Not dramatic, weighty. Earned. The Zytherian Empire's finished. I didn't end it. It was already rotting. We just opened the windows and let the stench out. They ruled with pageantry and blood, convinced that fear was the final language. They were wrong. It's refusal. That's the universal tongue. And today, the galaxy finally spoke it. One of the nearby relay towers sparked, but the signal held. Alien symbols translated the speech in real time. His voice layered with Kalari resonance, Slar subsonic tones, Rakath pictograms. All of it perfectly clear. You've been told that order is sacred. That peace comes only when you surrender. But what they really meant is, peace comes when you forget who you are. That ends today, No more translations designed to soften your rebellions. No more gods behind gold-plated doors. No more kneeling to a throne that forgot your name. A Slar ambassador emerged from the crowd, his 6 eyes narrow with skepticism. And what replaces the order you've destroyed, human? Chaos? Civil war? Corvin didn't blink. Freedom's ugly. Don't pretend you didn't already have civil war. You just called it management. You beat your citizens with ceremony instead of clubs. I just tore the mask off. He turned back to the cameras. This isn't Earth's new empire. We didn't come to conquer. We came to interrupt. If you want leaders, choose them. If you want peace, define it. If you want war, make damn sure it's one worth remembering. We'll be watching. Not as rulers. As witnesses. Another signal surged through the channel. The old empire's remaining regional governors tried to override the feed. It failed. The virus had done its job. They couldn't cut him off. You think one man changed the galaxy? He said. No. You did. I just happened to be the first one rude enough to put my boots on the Emperor's table. Laughter rose from some of the rebel nodes across the stars. Not joy. Recognition. The absurdity of it. The simplicity. One boot. One act of defiance. The symbol had outlived the strike. We've uploaded the full records. Every treaty buried. Every war crime shelved in your archives. The files are live now, uncensored. Every broadcast tower is sharing them. The truth isn't a weapon. It's a detonation. You want peace? Start by telling the truth about what was done in its name. Behind him, a dozen liberated prisoners assembled quietly. Their faces were of species who hadn't shared the same air a year ago. Now they stood like comrades. Survivors of something larger than battle. Corvin looked at the screen again. No script. Just fire in the gut and a voice that knew too much to pretend. You're free now. That doesn't mean safe. That doesn't mean stable. It means the leash is gone. Some of you will use that to build. Some of you to burn. That's not on Earth. That's on you. And I wouldn't have it any other way. A pause. Then he reached down into his bag and pulled out the object that had started it all. One boot. Scuffed. Cracked. Mud-caked. Blood dried along the side. He lifted it slowly and placed it on the stone pedestal where the Emperor's crown had once been displayed. This boot was never about war. It was about telling the galaxy that humans don't show respect to tyrants. We stomped them. He stepped back. The camera panned, capturing the battered boot standing in place of a crown. Make no mistake. We're still here. Watching. Listening. And if anyone out there thinks they can rebuild the same throne with a different face, just remember. He leaned into the mic. We still have another boot. The signal didn't cut. It wasn't meant to. It looped. The speech. The image. The silence that followed. It ran across thousands of channels, streamed, recorded, whispered in alleys and war rooms alike. In time, the Citadel was turned into a free communication hub. In time, the boot was placed behind secure glass. And in time, it became a ritual. Every new leader in the post-Empire galaxy was required, before taking office, to stand before the boot and answer one question. What would happen if he walked in again? Most answered wisely. A few forgot. History shows those who forgot didn't last long.